República Dominicana.
3 година.
Ви слухаєте Українське радіо. Суспільний мовник. Достовірна інформація.
Ukraine security issue.
The Ukrainian armed forces have liberated several thousand square kilometers from the Russian occupiers during an offensive that started near the 29th of August, said Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar. A day earlier, the U.S. Institute for the Study of War reported 3,000 square kilometers retaken by Ukraine. New data suggests the Ukrainian military's counter-offensive is developing rapidly. President Zelensky believes that even if the war is to last for years to come, Ukrainian fighters shall resist Russian occupiers and defend Ukraine till the end. Volodymyr Zelensky spoke with American journalist Fareed Zakaria.
Не можна дати Росії продовжувати ту саму окупацію повільну, яку вона
The main purpose of the occupation is to prevent Russia from continuing the very slow occupation that it started in 2014. When they come, seize a little, take a break, freeze the conflict, draw up some agreements, and further empower themselves. That's the whole gist of their strategy. We will not stand still. We will easily continue to move steadily forward. We will not talk to them otherwise. I know that some countries would push us towards the Minsk process. I want the world to understand they are different things. A diplomatic solution and Minsk 2, 3, 5 or 10 are two very different things. Minsk is a blank piece of paper to give Russia a break before the next invasion. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, held a telephone conversation with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell. According to the press service of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Josep Borrell called to express his admiration and respect for Ukraine's defense forces as they liberate more territories from Russian occupation. The head of Ukraine's Foreign Affairs Ministry requested weapons, sanctions and financial aid. EU support will continue unabated. Our strategy works, help Ukraine to fight back, pressure Russia with sanctions and support partners around the world. Borrell wrote on Twitter after their conversation with Dmytro Kuleba. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi on Monday confirmed the cold shutdown of reactor number 6, the final reactor at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Currently, the reactor is not generating energy. This decreases the risk of a nuclear disaster, although does not exclude it. According to Grossi, Ukraine's attempts to renew power supplies are constantly hindered by Russian shelling. If the Russians strike the power plant, cutting energy supplies there too, this may result in a grave disaster with transcontinental consequences, said Chief State Inspector for Nuclear and Radiation Safety of Ukraine, Oleg Korikov, at a briefing.
У випадку знеструмлення і завершення запасів дизельного палива і не по трансфері відповідно струму електричного на власні потреби, то можливо...
A power outage and running out of diesel could result in an accident damaging the reactor's active area and a powerful release of radioactive elements into the environment. In the worst-case scenario, a total radioactivity of 10 and the 18th power becquerel could be released. This is comparable with Fukushima and Chernobyl. If, God forbid, this does occur, the consequences shall transcend Ukraine's borders. Therefore, we must apply all efforts to put an end to combat, demilitarize the zone surrounding the Zaporizhzhia power plant, deoccupy the station, and return it under the control of the Ukrainian government. In the event of a nuclear disaster at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, radiation could contaminate the south of Ukraine and several European countries, suggests a forecast by the Ukrainian Hydrometeorological Center. Experts say air masses could transport radioactive fallout to the south of Ukraine, further carrying the radioactive cloud over Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, Moldova and Romania. The international community should respond to the shelling of Ukraine's critical infrastructure by providing Kyiv with air defense and anti-rocket systems. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the president's office, wrote on Twitter, according to him, the world should understand that Russia is incapable of fighting on the battlefield and will fight only with civilians. The terrorist attack on Kharkiv's thermal power plant on September 11th was not Russia's last attempt to deprive civilians from heating and electricity. Russia's apparent response to Ukraine liberating cities and villages in the east is sending missiles to attempt to destroy critical civilian infrastructure. Bridget Brink, United States ambassador to Ukraine, wrote on Twitter. According to her, the occupiers are trying to destroy critical infrastructure in Ukraine. The Czech Ministry of Foreign Affairs referred to the attacks as cowardly and noted they are evidence of Russia's weakness. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas wrote on Twitter that the strikes on the energy infrastructure constitute a war crime. A cleanup is underway in the liberated territories, where mass crimes by the enemy on Ukrainian soil have been recorded. In the village of Zaliznichne in the recently liberated Kharkiv region, 4 more bodies have been discovered with signs of torture, reported the Prosecutor General's office. The invaders buried 3 bodies in areas of residential housing, and 1 body was buried on the territory of an asphalt factory. The Russians seized 2 hotels in the center of the occupied city of Kherson, with a report of the police service of the Kherson region. The invaders continued to burglarize houses of the local residents, later transporting goods in armored personnel carriers and trucks. Such instances are reported daily. Yuri Sobolevsky, deputy head of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, said in an interview. The Ukrainian Ministry of Justice says Ukraine intends to seek $300 billion in reparations from Russia for the damages caused by its invasion. The losses caused to Ukraine by the Russian full-scale invasion are actually estimated much higher. However, the mentioned amount corresponds to the assets of the Central Bank of Russia in the countries of the Big Seven, frozen as part of the sanctions, says Minister of Justice Denis Maluska.
Попереднє розуміння у наших партнерів, що кошти золотовалютних резервів треба.
This moment in time, our partners do understand that any gold and foreign exchange reserves should be handed over to Ukraine. The only issue is providing legal tools to ensure the transfer. This is something we are working on already. It will be a big international agreement where countries will be able to join and, in pursuance of this agreement, transfer assets to us and remove immunity from the assets of the Russian Federation. I should remind you that Russia's golden and foreign exchange reserves are protected by sovereign immunity, whereby one country cannot simply take away another country's assets. But if an international agreement is put in place, such transfers will be possible. A video game called Ukraine War Stories shall be presented this October. Ukraine War Stories is a set of visual novels about the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Set in the early months of the war, it tells the stories of civilians trapped on the Russian-occupied territories of Bucha, Hostomel and Mariupol. Reads the description on Steam, a gaming development and discussion platform. Ukraine War Stories was developed by a small team located in Kyiv. In the game, the players shall not fight, they shall only try to survive. All stories are based on real events and eyewitness accounts.
Ви слухаєте Українське радіо, шановні слухачі. Це був випуск новин англійської мови, який традиційно лунає о 3-й ночі. Вже впродовж 200 днів на хвилях Українського радіо. Для тих, хто слухає нас за океаном, для тих, хто звик сприймати новини англійською, для тих, кому в такий спосіб зручніше і потрібніше саме цієї миті. Ми перейдемо слово колегам з телевізійної частини